Hello, everybody. My name is Elijah Pariso, and today I'm going to be explaining the effects of apparent motion on the media. Before we get into that, let's do a fun little exercise. What do you see here? Just a cluster of dots, right? Nothing special. What if I were to flash some of them? Still not seeing much. What if I adjust the timing of these flashes? It's starting to look a little bit like motion now, right? What if I were to speed up this timing? Now it's starting to look like something's moving. This is an example of apparent motion. It's the illusion that moving objects are actually stationary. These objects are often viewed successively, and that's how they show motion. Evolutionary basis is given through animal studies, and it goes to show that our brains are hardwired to see motion even if things aren't moving. It happens all around us, not just in nature. And with technology, this is even more pronounced. So, how does this apply to the big screen? Apparent motion is actually the basis of the theatrical experience. The movie industry is quite the phenomenon. With the introduction of CGI, there have been effects that don't quite make sense in the physical world. From flying superheroes to enormous natural disasters, the effects of movies accomplish impossible feats. Today, I will explain the importance of apparent motion in the film industry and apply this knowledge outside the theater. But before we get to that, we must go back to the basis. Have you ever heard the statement, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts? This explains apparent motion. Objects viewed in succession appear to be one moving object. As an optical illusion, apparent motion is basically us seeing something that isn't there. Well, it is there, but the motion is perceived. So why do we view it this way? Gestaltism, which is based off the idea of the whole being greater than the sum of its parts, advocates for apparent motion on the basis that our minds are filling in the missing information. Now, there are a few laws in this theory that fit with apparent motion. There are many more laws, but these three pertain the most to our study today. They are the laws of similarity, proximity, and closure. The law of similarity states that objects with similar size, shape, and color are grouped together. We see this in our illusion because the balls have the exact same size, shape, and color. And when we flash them, they have the exact same movement. What if we were to change the size, shape, and color of these balls? When we flash them, it starts to look like they're not really moving, but more just flashing. The law of proximity argues that objects which are closer together are grouped together. If we go back to our original illusion, we see that these dots are pretty equally spaced to each other and relatively close. If we were to flash these dots, we start to see that they're moving. Now, what if we were to change the distance of these balls? If we flash them, we see that there's movement, but it's really hindered. This brings us to the law of closure, which is probably the most important law to establish in our study. It states that objects which make a complete image are grouped together. If we go back to our original illusion, we see that upon flashing the balls, they make one circular movement. What if I were to eliminate this pathway? We start to flash them and see that it's really hard to notice any sort of motion in these balls. This brings us to the visual processes in the brain, and here we will start off with top-down. This results from context and pretty much experience explains perception. Have you ever seen something that you might have wanted to see, but it's not really there? Well, most likely top-down processes have influenced you. But today we will be focusing on bottom-up processes. This is automatic processes moving up to the brain and providing those experiences. Now, this leads us to theories of the theater, in which we see the top-down versus bottom-up. The Stalinist theory argues that tampering occurs in visual post-processing. Now, someone may see an image exactly as it is, but it's the processes after that cause the viewer to maybe see an illusion. Now, the Orwellian theory is the more accepted theory today. It's when the subject perceives the image, but it's memory that tampers the perception. An important term to know is iconic memory. So, this is a very, very short period of time in which one remembers something, but the image is actually tampered, and this is how we see apparent motion in theaters today. But why don't we go into something that may have impact on theaters in the future? With more and more LED theaters across the country, we're starting to see its prominence in theaters and at homes. They're devices that present colored pixels to the audience, that is, you. They are newer than classic TVs, but the perceptual theory behind them is very basic. That is, all we see on a TV are pixels. They're not the objects they present themselves to be, obviously. If you see a horse on a TV screen, you are not seeing a real horse. What each of these dots do is simply change color. And because changing color quickly results in a merging of color, we are able to detect smoother transitions on this type of screen. Because pixels are the same size and shape, these shifts in color depict apparent motion. Thus, we see the Orwellian theory come into play. You see many distinct stimuli. However, the processes in your brain tell you that TV is a portal to a different world. Thus, your perception and expectations revolve around this implicit way of thinking. And of course, a TV works with sound as well. Newer studies are showing that apparent motion works with other modes of information. The most studied mode after visual is audio. With new advances into surround sound, more studies are showing that different audio stimuli can help the viewer experience one continuous event. But that's for next time. So now I ask this question. How is your perception fooled when you watch movies or even TV? I hope you're able to pick up on apparent motion the next time you're watching a movie, or even just watching TV. Thank you for your time, and here's some references in case you want to do some research on your own. Thank you again.